Us is a movie about a group of evil doppelgangers who terrorize a family, and going into this movie, I was sold because the trailers looked creepy as shit. Hey there guys, how are you? So let's talk about the film Us, directed by Jordan Peele, who directed the film Get Out a few years ago, which I really enjoyed. Had a lot of social commentary, and I really enjoyed that vibe that movie gave me. But with the film Us, it's more of the classic throwback to a home invasion horror film that references Home Alone at one point. And for me, that's the movie I wanted to see. The movie starts out in 1986, where the events that a young girl goes through carry on to present day. Now, on a quick side note, the majority of this movie takes place at this boardwalk location at the Santa Cruz Beach, and it reminded me of another 1980s horror film that has the same setting. It's called The Lost Boys. Maybe you've seen it. If you haven't, well, enjoy this scene right here. I kept thinking about this when watching this film. Just, yeah, don't get scared now. It's either the best scene ever put into a movie or the worst scene ever, but there's nothing better than a big jacked up guy playing the saxophone covered in baby oil. And with that said, I'm gonna give a big thanks to the sponsor of this video. That way we didn't have to do this movie review in a cardboard box behind the movie theater. So I'll be right back and we'll talk more about the movie in just 1 second. Big thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. It's an awesome and immersive PRG mobile game. It should be compared to the biggest PC and console games, but the amazing thing is, it's free! And it has all the features you'd expect from a brand new RPG title. Like an amazing storyline, awesome 3D graphics, giant boss fights, PvP battles, and hundreds of champions to collect and customize. I never expected to get this kind of performance out of a mobile game. Look how crazy the level of detail is on these champions. I mean, just look at this giant green orc. Look at those pecs, man. It's amazing. Raid is getting big real fast, so get in early. Starting now will give you a huge head start. There's also an upcoming special launch tournament with crazy in-game prizes and real-life physical prize packs. So go down in the description of this video and download Raid only through my links and get 50,000 silver immediately. And a free Epic Champion as part of the new player program courtesy of the developers. See you there. Now, much like the film Get Out, this film was also written and directed by Jordan Peele, and my favorite thing that he does as a writer and director is he knows how to blend comedy and horror perfectly together. Those two genres, typically when you make a movie that has a lot of comedy or scary suspense in it, they don't know how to balance those two things cohesively. And sometimes it goes too far one direction, and sometimes it's not scary, sometimes it's so funny it takes you out of the suspense of the film. But when it comes to Jordan Peele as a director and writer, he does this, and it's amazing because he can have you laughing your ass off or have you on the edge of your seat in the next scene and then laughing again just a few seconds later, and never once does either scene counterbalance each other to where it takes you out of the movie. Now, when it comes to the acting and performances throughout this film, it pretty much follows this family, but the main character of the entire film is the mother of the family, played by Nyong'o. And her performance as this character, as this mother, was very convincing, but she also has a dual role throughout the film, and it's creepy as shit. You took daylight for granted. It goes something like that, but I really enjoyed it. And that same thing goes for every actor throughout this film. They all have a dual role, and they play evil versions of themselves. Now let's talk about the comedy aspect of this film. And before I do that, I first have to talk about the father in the film, played by Winston Duke, who is more or less the comedic relief of the entire film. And at first, he's almost a little too comedic. He sort of comes across as obnoxious, but then you learn to love this guy. And some of the one-liners he says, even in terrifying, suspenseful situations, you still laugh, and then you get right back into the scene. Now, no worries, no spoilers. I won't spoil anything for you. I hate that we have to say that in YouTube videos, because if I'm going to spoil anything for you, I'll put spoilers and big capital titles on the title of the video. But anyway, one of my favorite scenes in this film was a home invasion scene, and it's bloody, and it's gory, and it's over the top, and in the background, they're playing NWA, and it's a thing of beauty. It's the sort of scene I wanted to see in a movie like this, and I got it. And speaking of music, the score to this movie is amazing. It's eerie at times, but it also has the ability to make songs like I Got 5 on It terrifying to listen to during the climax of the movie. And I really enjoy that. I love when a film can take something that's everyday and you never think of it as terrifying, and it can do that. And now I'll never listen to that song the same way again. Now, I know it sounds like I'm praising this film, and maybe I am, but I do have some big negatives, especially with the ending to the film I'm going to talk about in just one second. But first, I want to say from a comedic element, from a horror genre element, those two things were blended perfectly in this movie. I can't praise them enough. And from a visual standpoint of being terrified, because this is a horror film first and a comedy movie second, the opening shot to this movie where you have this little girl walking down the boardwalk, and you sort of have this feeling that something bad's about to happen, and she's walking into the darkness, this abyss, where she's walking to the end of the boardwalk, and down below you can see the sand and the beach. It sent chills down my arms because you could just feel something bad was about to happen. And I loved that. Like, that scene still sticks with me and gives me little goosebumps down my arm as I talk about it right now. So from a visual standpoint, I really enjoyed the way that this film looked because you got immersed into these environments. You got to see those lurking, dark, shadowy figures in the background, but you also got to see everything that was going on. This is a modern-day horror film that doesn't feel like a modern-day horror film, which is the biggest praise I can really say about this film because it doesn't feel like a big bloated CG mess with screamy faces and loud sounds every time someone turns around. This movie's nothing like the 20 last terrible horror films I watched of this year and last year. Yeah! Now listen, throughout this entire film, I was along for the ride. I was enjoying everything I was getting, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, please, by the end of this movie, just give me an explanation I can live with and somehow make sense for everything happening. And do they explain everything at the end of this film? Yeah, they explain it. They almost overly explain it. Because when you're watching a movie like this, just give me a slight explanation and I'll leave the theater happy with my stale popcorn and Sour Patch Kids in my pocket. But I never take the drink because the ice cubes melt and it just, yeah, warm diet soda tastes like shit. But once again, when a movie tries to overly explain itself, you start asking yourself too many questions. And all I'm saying is I felt like maybe they should have made the explanation a little bit more vague and small scale, and I would have bought into it a little bit more. But hang on, there's more. That's not even my biggest issue with this film, because at the very end of the film, after they explain how these events came to be, they throw a twist into the movie, and that twist is a little too on the nose, because they could have been a bit more ambiguous with it, but they just blatantly tell you exactly what's happening. And I was hoping for something more along the lines that we got in Inception. Leave it up for a debate. Make us go watch the movie 5 times and make us have arguments on the internet for 5 years to come to talk about, okay, did that really happen? Did that really happen? And none of those things will happen now because the movie blatantly tells you. Now here are my final flicking thoughts on the film Us. I really enjoyed this film. It was refreshing. It gave me all these different elements combined into one movie, and it did them all so perfectly, except for the last 5 minutes of the movie. But this is an ambitious film. This is a different film. This is the sort of film I think we should get more of, and I appreciate that. And I think Jordan Peele as a director and writer, I can't wait to see what he does next. I will say, as far as a horror film goes, the film Us definitely fits the category more than the film Get Out did, and I really enjoyed this film. I think you guys should definitely check it out. I'm going to give the film Us a solid B. Go check out the movie. It's a good time. Now here's my question for you, and let me know down below. Who would you say your doppelganger is? If I had to pick one, well, yeah. I know, I just ruined Scarlett Johansson for you. I'm sorry. And my other question to you is, what did you think about the movie? Let me know that down below in the comments. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. That way I can see you next time.